The morning everything I'd asked for finally arrived, I almost didn't recognize it. I was standing in my kitchen holding a coffee mug that had gone cold an hour ago, staring at an email that should have made me scream with joy. And all I felt was quiet. Not happiness. Just quiet. Like something had shifted without asking my permission first. 3 years earlier, I was the kind of person who read manifestation books on my lunch break and hid them under my desk like contraband. I had a vision board taped inside my closet door, a picture of a cabin, a laptop on a beach, the words, abundance, and flow, cut out from magazines in fonts I thought looked spiritual enough to matter. I wrote affirmations every morning. I said them out loud in my car before work, windows up, feeling a little ridiculous and a little hopeful at the same time. I worked at a mid-sized marketing firm then, the kind of place where everyone was pleasant and nobody was particularly alive. I had a boss named Denise who complimented my positive energy, in a tone that always felt like she was filing it away for later use against me. I told myself I was manifesting my way out of that building. I believed, truly believed, that if I visualized hard enough, said the right words with enough conviction, the universe would rearrange itself around my wanting. What I didn't notice, what I completely missed for almost 2 years, was a small, strange pattern. Every time I got a new opportunity, however small, it never came right after a big affirmation session or a particularly hopeful vision board Sunday. It came after something uncomfortable. A rejection. A blunt piece of feedback I didn't want to hear. A conversation where someone told me something about myself I didn't like admitting was true. I remember thinking, at the time, that these were just obstacles on the way to my manifested life. Tests. Things to push through with more affirmations, more belief. I didn't stop to ask why the pattern kept repeating, because I wasn't looking for a pattern. I was looking for magic. The first real crack in that belief happened during a performance review with Denise. She was going down her usual list of gentle non-criticisms when she paused, looked at me for a second longer than normal, and said, "You know, you talk about the future a lot. Almost like you're not fully here for the present job." It wasn't cruel. It wasn't even really critical. But it landed somewhere in my chest and stayed there. I brushed it off. I went home, wrote 3 new affirmations, added a picture of a mountain to my board. But that sentence kept surfacing at odd moments, in the shower, in traffic, right before falling asleep. Not fully here. I started noticing how often I daydreamed through meetings, how often I mentally rehearsed the version of my life I wanted instead of paying attention to the one I was actually living. I was so busy visualizing a future self that I'd become a kind of ghost in my own present. That's when the mystery started, though I didn't call it that at the time. Small things stopped adding up. A coworker named Priya, who barely spoke to me most days, started asking me real questions. Not, "How are you?" but specific ones. "What do you actually want to be doing in 5 years?" Not the vision board version, the real one. I didn't have an honest answer. I had a rehearsed one. And she noticed the difference immediately, which unsettled me more than I let on. Then there was the strange comment from my aunt at a family dinner, the kind of comment you don't process until much later. She said, "You've gotten easier to talk to lately." I asked what she meant. She just shrugged and said, "You used to talk at people. Now you actually listen." I laughed it off, but something about it wouldn't leave me alone. I hadn't consciously changed how I listened to people. Or had I? Looking back, I think that was the beginning of the turning point, even though I didn't recognize it as one in the moment. Turning points rarely announce themselves. They just quietly rearrange something in you, and you only notice the rearrangement weeks later, when you try to go back to your old way of thinking and find you can't quite fit into it anymore. The actual moment of realization came almost by accident. I was cleaning out my closet, the same closet with the vision board, and I found an old journal from 2 years back. I flipped through it, expecting to feel nostalgic about my manifestation journey. Instead, I found pages of complaints. Not affirmations, complaints. About Denise, about the commute, about people not listening to me, about how unfair everything felt. Page after page of a person waiting for the world to notice her, rather than a person doing anything different. And then, near the back, I found an entry from around the same week as Denise's comment about me not being here. The entry was short. It said, "I think I've been performing my life instead of living it. Vision boards are just another performance. What if I actually just paid attention instead?" I didn't remember writing that. I didn't remember, even, feeling that clearly 2 years ago. But there it was, in my own handwriting, a truth I'd apparently stumbled into and then buried under more affirmations because the truth was less comfortable than the fantasy. Reading it now, in my kitchen, cold coffee in hand, staring at the email that offered me the exact job I'd cut out of a magazine and glued to my closet door, creative director, remote friendly, better pay than I'd ever made, I understood something that no vision board had ever taught me. The shift hadn't come from wanting harder. It had come from that uncomfortable review with Denise, which made me start noticing when I checked out of my own life. It had come from Priya's blunt questions, which made me practice giving real answers instead of rehearsed ones. It had come from my aunt noticing I'd become a better listener, which made me realize that listening, actual, present listening, had quietly become a skill I was building without meaning to build it. None of it had felt like manifestation while it was happening. It felt like discomfort. It felt like being seen in ways I hadn't asked to be seen. But that discomfort had done something the affirmations never could. It had made me pay attention to other people instead of just to my own wanting. It had made me become someone worth noticing, not because I'd wished it into existence, but because I'd stopped performing long enough to actually change. The opportunities that came weren't magic. They were the natural result of a person who'd finally started showing up honestly, instead of a person constantly rehearsing a better version of themselves from a script. I sat with that for a long time. There's a particular kind of humility in realizing you've been given credit, even by yourself, for the wrong reasons. I wanted to believe I'd attracted this life through belief alone, because that story was easier and more flattering than the real one. The real one required admitting that growth mostly comes from the moments we'd rather avoid, the blunt feedback, the uncomfortable mirror someone else holds up to us, the quiet realization that we've been talking instead of listening. What strikes me now, thinking back on all of it, is how much energy I spent trying to manifest a life I could have simply built, piece by piece, through ordinary attention. Not through mystical certainty that the universe owed me something, but through the much less glamorous work of noticing what wasn't working and letting people's honesty, even when it stung, actually land somewhere instead of bouncing off my defenses. I still have that closet door, though the vision board came down a long time ago. In its place, I keep that old journal entry taped up instead, the one line about performing versus living. It's not inspiring in the way a magazine cutout is inspiring. It doesn't promise abundance or flow. It just reminds me of something simpler and harder, that the life I actually wanted was less about the world rearranging itself around my desires, and more about me finally rearranging my attention toward what was already there. I think about Denise sometimes, and how she probably has no idea that one offhand comment during an unremarkable review quietly redirected the next 3 years of my life. I think about Priya's blunt questions, and my aunt's small observation at a dinner table. None of them knew they were part of anything. They were just being honest with me, in small, unremarkable moments, the way people often are without realizing the weight of what they're handing you. Maybe that's the real hidden truth in all of this, that the moments which change us rarely look like turning points while they're happening. They look like discomfort. They look like a mirror we didn't ask for. And the real work isn't wishing for a different life. It's staying present enough, and honest enough, to actually notice when someone is handing you the exact truth you've been avoiding. I wonder how many of us are still waiting for the universe to notice our vision boards, when the real shift is already sitting quietly in some uncomfortable conversation we had months ago, the one we brushed off instead of sitting with.